Hold on, guys, if you can just give me a minute.
Good morning, everyone. As you're waiting, please make sure you type your name, your full name, and your district name into the chat aside of remote check-in, just to have a backup. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Angie. So the 2020 data collection periods in July 1st, 2019 to June 30th, 2020. This will include all students ages 3 through 21 who were evaluated and had their special education eligibility between these ranges. The items that we're going to be going over today is your data collection form. This data collection form contains 3 sections. One of those sections being student ages 3 through 21, for whom parents requested a full individual initial evaluation. Parents or teachers, right? Section 2 is the evaluation and eligibility determined within state established timelines. And section 3 is your evaluations not within state established timelines. So we'll be going over this, as well as I'll be incorporating some of the questions from the FAQ dealing with that SPP 11. So let's go ahead and get started. So the FAQ question number 4 asks, which students are counted in line A for current data collection, July 1st through June 30th? Well, the students counted in line A include the following, which are the students ages 3 through 21 for whom a verbal or written request for a full individual initial evaluation were received. So here we have 5 scenarios that we will consider are being considered for line A. One of those being a prior written notice was provided to the parent and parental consent was obtained. The child was evaluated, the report was written, and it was ARDed. The child was ARDed. So this is tested, the child that was tested, report written, and ARDed. This is one of the scenarios. Another scenario that will be represented in line A is the prior written notice was sent out, provided to the parent, the consent was obtained. However, the parent revoked the consent for this current year. Another scenario, the third scenario that we're dealing with is the prior written notice was provided, the parent refused to provide consent to evaluate the child for this current year. The fourth scenario is the prior written notice was provided to the parent. However, the LEA refused to evaluate the student with this current year. And then the final scenario, we're dealing with a prior written notice being sent out, provided to the parent, and however, this previous data that was collected was the 2018-2020 data that was collected then, but somehow, some way, the evaluation and the report was written and gone to ARD within that July 1st, 2019, June 30th, 2020 data. Okay, so these are the 5 different scenarios that we're dealing with, right? One being the child has been tested, report written, and ARDed. The other one is where the parent is revoked the consent. Then we have a parent refusal. We have the LEA refusal. And then finally, previous data that was given and somehow was reported within this window. So those are the 5 different scenarios as we move forward. So here we have question from question 22 on the FAQ. And by the way, the PowerPoint and the FAQ questions are uploaded on the workshop, just to let you all know. Okay, so when a student transfers from an LEA in another state, and then we have this Texas Administrative Code there, and the new LEA determines the evaluation is necessary, is this considered a full initial evaluation? So do I place it in this form? Do I count them? Yes. The student will be counted in SPP indicator 11. So we move on to the next one. And here we have question number 5 from the FAQ. Which students are not counted in line A for the current data collection year? Well, the students that are not counted for line A are any students ages 3 to 21 for whom a verbal or written request for a full individual initial evaluation was received and the process is still ongoing or pending. These students will be included in the subsequent year. So remember when we were dealing with the 5 scenarios, this will be scenario number 5. Somehow, some way, due to COVID, these are some of our COVID kids that we have them open, that we haven't assessed, and somehow they're gonna, once we finish them and complete them, we report them in that following year. These are those kids. These are not counted in this year's template. They also give you some examples, which are your students who are less, that fall within that less than 35 consent, those consents that fall within that less than 35 school years before the last instructional day. And simply because you do have that extended time, those 35 plus that extended time going on to the next school year. That's why these will not be included, because you still have that next school year. And then the next scenario that they give you, the next example that they give you in that FAQ, they say a request received at least 35 but less than 45 school days. The consents that fall within this range, you know that you have till June the 30th to write a report and not go to ARD until those 15 days, right? Those 15 school days of the following year. So it kind of gives you an extension now, you know, for them, which will not be included in your line 9. The next question we have from the FAQ is, if a student is in, it's question number 17. Question number 17 on the FAQ indicates if a student is in special education receiving speech services and is referred for another suspected disability for additional testing by the IEP committee, would the student need to be reported in the data collection for SPP indicator 11? And the answer is no. The initial evaluation process was completed when the IEP committee determined the student to be speech. Okay. The next question is question number 16 from the FAQ, and it talks about, do I include a student in which the initial evaluation process has begun, but the student moves to another LEA? And the answer is, unlike the answer, no. No. The student will not be included in SPP indicator 11. However, you will need to report any student that is enrolled in the LEA after the timeline has begun and prior eligibility determination by another LEA. LEAs must have sufficient progress to ensure prompt completion of the evaluation, and the LEA and the parent must agree to a specific time when the evaluation will be completed. The LEA holding the IEP committee meeting should count that student in row 2 and compliance sections located in rows B and C. And we'll go over the significance of all those rows as we move forward. So now the question is, which students are counted in A1? This is question number 7 in the FAQ. Well, any student counted in A1 for whom a student or teacher asserts verbally or written during the referral or evaluation process. The student should have been referred prior school years and counted only once in A1, okay? So A dealt with 5 scenarios that we went over. Now we start splitting those scenarios. So A1 was that fifth scenario that we talked about. Any student that was addressed that prior year that somehow landed this year, those go in A1. Those students go in A1. So the next question we have, do I include students in row A2 who have written consent to evaluate, but after giving consent to evaluate, the parent did not cooperate with the LEA and the eligibility process was not completed? No. Students for whom the evaluation process was not completed and therefore eligibility was not determined should not be included in the data collection for SAP 11. LEAs must keep a detailed record of their attempts to complete the evaluation process. Okay, so your A1 is representative of your prior year referral, somehow landed in this year data. Your A2 is those students who were completed this year, who you have written a report, you have audited and received an eligibility. Those are your A2, okay? So here it's telling you, well, what about if I don't have a complete evaluation, right? The written consent was given, however, the parents did not cooperate. And this kind of goes into our COVID, right? So those that you have pending, you will not include in your A2. Your A2 are only those evaluations that have been received, the consents have been signed, and the report has been written and they've been audited. That goes in your A2. If you have any incomplete ones, you do not include them in your A2 nor your A1, because your A1 are your prior referred students. So who is entered in A2? Enter the number of students from A, the ones that are in A, from whom they signed the consent to evaluate was received between July 1st, 2019 and June 30th, 2020. Like I said, these are the students who were tested, the report was written, and they were audited. Okay. I just want to go ahead and clarify that our check-in is SPP11. SPP being lowercase and then 11. SPP11 is our check-in code. Okay, let's go ahead and continue with our session. So now we start off with section 1. Remember, this form contains 3 sections and we're starting off with our first section, section 1. So we have the letter A, which were the number of students aged 3 through 11 for whom a verbal or written evaluation of the FIE was received, right? We have that prior written notice was provided to the students. So here, let's say we have a random number of 180. Wouldn't that be wonderful, right? For some of you guys, just 180. Okay, so we have 180. And then we have an A1. Those A1 students are those students who were somehow referred in the previous year that were reported this year. So we had 8 of those. According to this document that I'm showing you here in this slide, we have 8 of those. And then we have A2. A2 is represented of those students who were tested, report was written, and they were audited. Now A2 breaks into 2 other cells of completion within the A3 and A4. A3 being the students who were determined not to be eligible. So once you audit them, they were not eligible. And then A4 is representative of those students who were determined eligible. So you audit and they came into the program. Please note that Please note that A3 and A4 have to equal A2. So we go back. So A1 is your students that were priorly referred to somehow landed in this year's data. That's your A1. Your A2 are the students who were report was written and you audit them, which then they break into two other cells, which is your A3 and your A4. Out of those 130 that we have there, 15 of those did not qualify and 115 were eligible, right? Now we note that all those in A1 will be reflective of your A5. Well, not all. I need to correct that. Not all. Because from there, from your A1, you would notice that you're going to have some students who may have not been eligible. Even though they were in that prior year referral, they may have not been eligible. So we're considering for our A5 is those from A1 that were eligible would move on to your A5. So only A1 and A5 don't have to match, is my point. So what is meant by additional services in A6? So this comes from the FAQ question number 9. So additional services refers to the services that an IEP committee determines necessary to accommodate for any missed services while taking into consideration the supports and services previously provided to the student. LEAs into the total number of additional services in each of the service categories. Note, only students reported in A5 will be included in A6. And we'll continue to get a little bit more elaboration here. So here we have an IEP, an example. Once again, this is your FAQ question number, what did I say, 9. So we have an example here. So we have 3 students, according to this data, this example, and student A, the committee determined 4 additional OT sessions were needed. For student B, the committee determined that 6 additional counseling sessions were needed and 12 additional one-to-one math tutorial session was needed. In student C, the IEP committee determined that 2 additional sessions, speech sessions were needed. So if we go ahead and consider how we would complete this is we would put the related services is 3, right? Because we are considering the OT, the counseling, and speech. Those are our 3 related services. So we go ahead and put that for these students. And then we also consider 1 support for personnel. That is your math tutorial sessions. That is that 1 support personnel. So this is the way we would arrange our data, given the information we have for that additional services. And then we move on to the next question. It's question 10 on the FAQ. What is meant by a timeline to implement services for A7? So here we have timelines for implementation refers to the duration of time needed to provide all the additional services reported in A6. For this data collection entry, the options include up to 6 months and more than 6 months, up to 1 year. LEA should select the options that indicate the timeline for all additional services for all students to be completed. Only students reported in A5 will be included in A7, okay? So here we have A7. In A7, we're looking at up to 6 months or more than 6 months, how we stated. And we have to verify that these 2, the A7I and the A7II have to match up to your A5. Okay. The next one. Here we have another example, and it's also question 10. And here we had already seen this, right? Where we have the 4 additional OT sessions, the 6 additional counseling sessions for student B, and student B also included that math tutorial sessions. And then student C had those additional speech sessions. Well, here they broke it down to how much was needed according to the IEP committee. So for OT, you had 3 months to be completed. For counseling, you had those 9 months. For that one-to-one math tutorial session, it was 6 weeks. And for speech sessions was completed in 5 months. Well, here, the LEA must select more than 6 months, although the timeline to complete the OT math tutorial and speech sessions were under 6 months. The longest duration for completing the counseling services was 9 months. So we will have here, even though it was 3 months, the only selection we have to choose from is those up to 6 months. So anything that was close to that up to 6 months was your OT, it was your one-to-one math, and it was your speech. So that was 3 that we would put in I, A7I. And then we did have one that extended more than those 6 months, which was that counseling. So we went ahead and put that 1 for the counseling. Don't forget, as we stated, these have to add up to your A5, these services. Okay. So the next question that we have here is coming out of FAQ, question number 11. Can multiple additional services per student be included in A7, A6, and A7? Well, according to the answer is, in A6, multiple additional services can be included for each student. The LEA should select all services the IEP documented in each student's IEP. However, multiple additional services selected in A6 should have only one duration time selected for A7. LEA should select the longest time to provide all additional services. If the IEP committee did not determine additional services were needed, then A6 and A7 are not applicable for that student. So do you see how A5 can vary? Because sometimes, because as you're completing that A6 and that A7, it's telling you in this last option, the IEP may not have determined additional services. So you will not complete those sections there for those students. Continuing on section 1, we have here another example from the FAQ question 11, where we have A7I, let me see, to be 5, right? And then we have for services, right? This is the services. And then we have 10 to be in A7 too. Those have to add up to your A5. Given the fact that the IEP committee determines services, right? If no services were determined, we do not include them in this section. That's just a visual of the previous question. Now we're moving on to section 2. Section 2 deals with evaluation and eligibility determined within state established timelines. So we look at B, row B, which talks about the number of students with evaluation report written within the state established timelines from receipt of signed written parental consent or district maintained detailed records of reason for delay. So in other words, we are dealing with students who you met that 45 school day timeline. But if you did not meet, that's where the or comes in. If you did not meet that 45 timeline date, then you have to have those detailed records, right? So now we go to C. C is representative of the students with eligibility determined by the art committee within 30 days of the date of the evaluation report, or the district maintained detailed records of the reason for delay. So here is that 30 calendar day timelines that we went to art that you went ahead and met. So here we would include those that were met. In addition to that, or if you didn't need it, make sure you have those detailed records when you include them there. That's for section number 2. Your B is your evaluation reports and your C is your arts. What constitutes detailed records? Here we have question number 13 on the FAQ, which indicates that detailed records may include comprehensive record of phone calls made or attempts, copies of correspondence sent to parents, and any respondents received or records of visits or attempt visits made to the parent home or place of employment. The result of each attempt to contact parents should be documented. Important factors to document include, but are not limited to, time, date, location, individuals involved, mode of communication, whether it's an email, phone, in person, and the description of what occurred. If the LEA has, if it is recommended that the LEA create and maintain a centralized system of documentation for audited purposes. So that's what entails your detailed records. So where do I include students for whom the parent repeated failure or refusal to produce a student for evaluation caused by the evaluation process to be delayed and completed outside of those established timelines? Is the LEA counted out of compliance? Well, I guess you can say it depends, right? Here we have the LEA has made every attempt to meet the timeline and has detailed records that the parent's action caused a delay in meeting the timeline, then the student will be included in row B, and the LA is considered compliance. So let's say you were unable to meet that testing to have that report written on time or tested on time, and it missed your timeline. As long as you have those detailed records, it indicates in this question, as long as you have, you can count them in row B as long as you have those detailed records, and the LEA will be considered compliant. So this is the section where we were talking about your evaluations being established in meeting timelines. And remember, we had that or meaning if you did not somehow meet it, then you have to indicate those detailed records. Here we have section 3. We're already on section 3, guys. Section 3, which is your evaluation not within state established timelines. So that is letter D. Number of students with evaluation report not within state established timelines from receipt of signed written parental consent. So we have D1. So let's say you were out of compliance, like you did not have established that timeline. So they give you the choice. Is it D1, 1 through 30 calendar days over timeline, or was it D2, 31 or more calendar days over time? Whatever you choose, if it's within that child that you're reviewing, you move on to E. E being the reasons for delay. And it gives you 5 reasons. And number 6, it actually gives you another where it gives you those 100 characters maximum that you can go ahead and include here. I do want to stress that A1 through A6 reflect your D. So we move on to the next question on the FAQ, which is question number 20. A student is evaluated and determined not eligible in the previous school year, and subsequently no services were provided in the following school year. Consent for evaluation is obtained and the IEP committee determines the student is eligible, I guess this year. Is the student reported in SPP 11? Yes. This would be considered an initial in both years for the purpose of SPP 11. The next question we have here, question number 21. Do I report in SPP 11, indicator 11, a student who was served in part C in the early childhood intervention, ECI, and that was reported in SPP indicator 12. So this child was reported in SPP 12. Do I include him in SPP 11? The answer is no. The student should be reported in SPP 12 only. Wow, I finished early, guys. Any questions, concerns, thoughts on our presentation today? I thought it was going to take me an hour. I guess not. That's great. Any questions that you all may have? You can go ahead and unmic yourself or write it on the chat. I guess, you know what, while I'm waiting for questions, pondering questions, let me go ahead and go over, stop share. I forgot I was gonna go over this wonderful chart here. Let me continue sharing. Here we go. We have this chart here. This is another flow chart. I love this flow chart, and it basically gives you an indication of a flow of where to go. Okay, so here we had line 1, which was all our 5 different scenarios, right? Whether the parent revoked the consent, whether the parent refused the consent, the LEA refused the consent, and then we have those A1 students who the report was written and ARDed. And then we have our A1, our A2 were our students who were reported, we had a written report and ARDed, that was our A2. And our A1 were our students that were from those recommended from those prior years, right? So all those are in A, those different 5 scenarios are in line A. And then it breaks down to your A1, which is your prior school year students. So from there, do you see the ones in red where we said the ones that were refused to evaluate go here? Where the parent refuses and then where the LEA refuses or revokes, those are out. But we continue with our data in blue for the ones that were evaluated and ARDed. That's our line A2. So our line A1 is those prior school year, and then our line A2 are the ones that we actually have an eligibility. So now we have that full individual evaluation and it splits. So that A2 splits into 2 lines, right? Which was your line A3 and your line A4. Your line A3 were all those that did not have an eligibility. So they're out, we report that they're out, but we are continuing to focus on those who did have an eligibility, which were that line A4, okay? So from that line A4, then we take into consideration that the ones from that previous year that did meet eligibility would go into your A5. And that A5 will then be those additional services to be reported. And then your A7 will be the duration of the services to be reported. So this is the flow chart that I've also included in the workshop to be able to help you. Of course, you know, all this is located on your SPP 11 indicator, as well as the TA website. So did we have any questions, Miss Angie?
No, none at this time.
Ms. Nava, I'm sorry.
Yes,
I came a little late due to internet issues, but I'm not too sure if you went over this, but on the students, because of the COVID-19, on students that were pending evals and parents, you know, refused to bring the child in for like face-to-face or any of that and decided to wait till August, are we gonna report those as missed timelines as well?
No, ma'am. Those individuals are not reported as missed timelines. Those individuals are gonna be like your scenario. Let me go into mine.
Sorry, I might have missed it. We do have consent. Consent was provided, but however, we didn't pursue the testing because of the whole COVID-19.
Absolutely. Here, we went over this one here. Let me just go over through the entire slide. So we have 5 different scenarios for the reporting for these students here. Okay, and it'll be the same for next year as far as so for us, for you to complete these documents, this template for P11, we are considering the first one, which is where the prior written notice was provided. And let me get rid of all that mess. Where the prior written notice was provided to the parent and the consent was obtained to the student, the child was evaluated. So here is everything was evaluated and ARTed. Those are going to be counted. If you have anyone that is incomplete, you will be reporting those from that prior year, from that prior school year, that last bullet there.
Okay, so I guess for the 2020-21 school year, I'll report those.
Yes, those
Okay.
will be reported then. If you miss the timeline, somehow you will finish it and they will fall. If you report them that following year, those will end up hitting you there in that prior notice. But make sure you have that documentation.
Okay.
Any other question?
I mean, and on there is, I don't remember, but on there is this section that we can notate there, like due to COVID-19. That was the reason for the not the completion of the eval.
Well, you know, once again, let's say you wrote the report. Let me get out of here. Let's say you wrote the report, but somehow you're late, right? But the report has been written, you audited it, and it's still within this timeline because this timeline doesn't finish till June 30th. So let's say at the end of the month, you've tested this child, you've already gone to ART. So this is where you hit here. The parent, a repeated failure. Okay, where do I include students for whom the parent repeated failure or refusal to produce the student for the evaluation caused the evaluation process to be delayed and completed outside of the state established timeline? So you were late. You still went to ART, you were able to get an eligibility for that child, then this will be your OR, where it says OR here. You could go ahead and count them in your B. Make sure you maintain those detailed records.
Okay.
Do you see that? But once again, this is already a completed FIE, and it's been ARTed, and there's an eligibility.
Okay.
Any additional questions, guys? I'm going to go ahead and stop video, but you can still ask questions. No worries.